Allantos. Oh. Aluminum. Kelly.
Back in 1987, Cadillac introduced their first two-seat roadster since the 1930s, the Allanté.
Cadillac Allanté. It is a luxury roadster unlike any that has come before it.
Intended as a competitor to the Mercedes SL and Jaguar XJS, the Allanté was the first and only General Motors car to have its body and interior built by Pininfarina in Italy, and then flown on 747s over to Detroit, Michigan, to be mated with the chassis and drivetrain, which became what they called the longest assembly line in the world. At a price of over $54,000 US, it cost nearly double the typical Cadillac of the time, and yet initially had a V8 engine that Cadillac had been using for a decade. By 1993, Cadillac finally upgraded the engine to its new Northstar V8, but after only selling about half as many as expected during its 7-year run, Cadillac ended the largest money-losing production process in its history.
Hello, car 54, where are you?
This is the story of the Cadillac Allanté. This is my old car.
I can't believe you did that! I got a spare in the truck, I'll fix it! You owe me 2 tires.
Why?
Why? Because bullets aren't covered in normal road hazard. That's why.
If you've been following my channel for a while now, you may recall I included the Allanté in my first top 10 sales flops video.
Ew, Allanté.
The Allanté was a significant risk for Cadillac and GM as a whole, and although it didn't pan out as they had hoped, it clearly didn't deter them from trying something similar ever again. As I write this in 2025, Cadillac is selling another Halo car, and like the Allanté, it costs at least twice as much as the next most expensive vehicle in their lineup. At a price of over $350,000 US, the Celestiq is not just Cadillac's most bespoke EV, it's the most exclusive vehicle they have ever sold. So exclusive, in fact, the odds are you'll never spot one on the road, unless you're like me and live in the Detroit area, where early models driven by GM execs have hit our streets. Despite its huge price tag, that cost wasn't affected by where the car was built. That was a huge factor in the Allanté's high price tag, and it led to its ultimate demise. Soon after the start of CEO Roger Smith's tenure in 1981, General Motors was, like the auto industry as a whole, still suffering the effects of the malaise-era downsizing and cost-cutting. This greatly contributed to GM's unfortunate tendency to copy the same car across multiple makes, with the most infamous being the Cadillac Cimarron, which was little more than a Chevy Cavalier with leather seats. Although the Cimarron hit showrooms in 1981, Cadillac's general manager at the time, Bob Berger, was also contemplating a new vehicle on the entire other end of the automotive spectrum. He believed Cadillac needed a top-of-the-line two-seater roadster that could compete with European rivals in terms of luxury and exclusivity. He also believed that the exterior and interior design of this new roadster would also have to be European to have any chance of competing with the likes of Mercedes or Jaguar. His idea? Considering offering the job to Italian coach builder Pininfarina, most famous for their long-term and close association with Ferrari. This wouldn't be the first time Cadillac ever considered having a car's body built by Pininfarina. Back in 1959 and 1960, Pininfarina hand-built 200 Eldorado Bromes at their factory in Turin, Italy. In 1982, Bob Berger sent a team of his engineers to Italy to find a coach builder to partner with Cadillac on his Roadster project. When word got back to Cadillac Studio within GM Design that Pininfarina was chosen over them, it didn't go over well, with a lot of hurt feelings all around. Berger tried to reassure them that this was being done to add a designer name to the car, comparing it to how blue jean manufacturers add designer names to their products to improve the image of their product. But a car is a whole lot different than a pair of jeans, and the scale of this project would go far beyond what Cadillac did with the Pininfarina Eldorado a decade earlier. GM signed the deal with Pininfarina in 1983. In 1984, Sergio Pininfarina himself traveled to the US to officially unveil a prototype Allanté to Cadillac's top 100 dealers selected to sell it. Although many at GM were not happy that so much of the car had been outsourced, the business relationship between Pininfarina and GM remained strong during the majority of the car's production run. That same year, Pininfarina began work, all with GM's money, on a new factory specifically for the Allanté, located in rural San Giorgio, about 20 miles from their primary factory in Turin. This new factory in San Giorgio, completed in 1986, would be the second stage in the manufacturing process. The Allanté bodies were built and painted on an exclusive line at Turin, then transported to San Giorgio. Pininfarina hired 25 new workers for San Giorgio, most of them just out of high school, to fit the exterior trim, electronics, and leather interiors. The third stage in the manufacturing process was the most logistically challenging and most expensive, at over $100 million to implement, and that's in mid-1980s dollars. Known as the Air Bridge, General Motors contracted two cargo airlines, Alitalia and Lufstansa, and GM paid to configure their 747s to hold 56 Allanté bodies at a time, and then fly them 7,000 miles from Turin to the Detroit City Airport. GM's Detroit Hamtramck Assembly Center built the Allanté chassis and powertrain, based on a shortened Eldorado platform, and matched each up with a completed Pininfarina body. During the first couple years, these 747s made the trip 3 times a week, and on the return trip, they sent back around 80 different Allanté parts to Turin, such as underbodies, rear compartments, engine compartments, and all major electrical components. Speaking of electronics, Cadillac wanted the Allanté to be, or at least appear to be, the most technologically advanced car they ever made. The initial models had everything standard, with just one option, a built-in cellular telephone with its own retractable antenna. They also would forego traditional analog gauges, with an all-digital display behind the steering wheel, and enough buttons and controls in the center stack to resemble an aircraft cockpit. The ironic part of this decision was that offering digital displays had been done before, on the 1984 Corvette, and later the Buick Reatta and Riviera, and it didn't take long for these overly complicated dashboards to be truly despised. Each of these cars, like the Allanté, had their fair share of older drivers, as they often were the only ones that could afford them, and although digital displays looked premium and futuristic, most of their owners thought it looked more like a video game, and would have been much happier with simpler analog gauges. There was enough pushback that by the Allanté's second model year of 1988, Cadillac offered analog gauges as a no-cost option. Under the hood, Cadillac installed a variant of their long-running aluminum 4.1-liter V8 engine, but designed to mount transversely to work with the car's front-wheel drive, itself an odd choice, considering roadsters were typically rear-wheel drive. Not surprisingly, critics were quick to point out its leisurely pace to reach 60 miles per hour in 10 seconds, which was ironic when you consider the Allanté came standard with Recaro bucket seats. Quality control issues with the body structure were also common among some of the earlier models, as the Pininfarina workers learned to adapt to the General Motors control standards. But with practice, they eventually improved the quality far beyond other GM cars made domestically. But it was above the driver's head that would be one of the oddest decisions the Allanté designers made, of which I can only assume was because they either ran out of money, or the technology was beyond what Pininfarina could provide. Although you could get a removable aluminum hardtop, the Allanté also had a fabric soft top, but that soft top had to be operated manually. All this for a top that in early models was not even completely weather sealed. To put this in perspective, a much cheaper 1982 Chrysler LeBaron had a power-operated soft top. But then again, the Chrysler TC by Maserati, which was a direct competitor to the Allanté, had a manual soft top, and was an even bigger sales flop. An upgraded 4.5-liter V8 arrived for 1988, bringing the 0 to 60 time down to 8.5 seconds, as well as improved seats, suspension, and provided larger 16-inch wheels. But not surprisingly, the Allanté's price increased as well, reaching over $57,000 in 1989, which is approaching the equivalent of $150,000 in 2025. By this point, Lufstansa, who had originally partnered with GM to cover some of the air bridge duties, backed out of the deal, as the sales numbers were not meeting the original forecasts, leaving Alitalia to continue on their own with only 2 flights per week, down from the original 3. By 1990, along with adding a CD player and an airbag to the steering wheel, Cadillac offered a lower price model at $52,000, which did not offer the aluminum removable hardtop, but you could still pay over $1,000 more for that cell phone. Sales still averaged around $3,000 per year, about half of the original projections, and when demand didn't improve, Alitalia decreased the flights to just 1 per week. By 1992, new gas guzzler taxes were in effect, which added another $1,300 to the price, and that likely helped bring sales down to only $1,900 that year. But some of that decrease maybe could have been caused by word leaking out about an upgrade to the engine planned for 1993. Or maybe it was a 76 Indy 500 in 1992 that had 3 1993 Allantés modified for pace car duty, one of which was driven by Bobby Unser. At 295 horsepower, the 93 Allanté had Cadillac's new 4.6-liter Northstar double overhead cam V8. It would be Cadillac's first model to offer this new engine, and it made many outside of GM think that Cadillac was more committed to continuing the Allanté beyond that year, despite a significant sales drop the year before. On the outside, you can spot a 93 Allanté from any other, as the side glass in 93 was modified to eliminate the triangular window vents just behind the windshield. The Allanté was due for its second generation to begin for the 1994 model year, and after around 18,000 sold from 1987 to 1992, which was far less than the 40,000 they had expected to sell by then, GM simply couldn't justify the additional $300 to $500 million to develop an updated model. So Cadillac decided to try installing the new Northstar engine in the 93 Allanté as a way to test it on a smaller scale. in preparation for its installation in other more mainstream Cadillacs like the Eldorado and Seville. The test served its purpose, as the Northstar proved reliable enough, at least for the short term, to live on in nearly all Cadillac models until the engine's end in 2011. But meanwhile, GM had to break the news to their fellow Pininfarina team members that 1993 would be the final model year for the Allanté. It was especially hard on the San Giorgio team, as they were all very young when it started, and the only job they knew. But ironically, it was also the Allanté's best sales year, with over 4,600 sold. That was 1,300 more than its previous best sales year, its inaugural year of 1987. The last Allanté left Italy on July 2, 1993, and finished in Detroit 2 weeks later. You would expect that for such a low-volume car, and for one so unique to have each car built in both Italy and the US, it would hold its value in the over 30 years since its demise. Well, if you were to ask any of the car's fan club members, it's still worth a lot. But then again, if you love the car, you may be willing to pay anything. Sadly, the reality is much different.
Hey, look, I'm an owner, love the car, would love to have you all come out, we'd love to feature it. And they took it the worst possible way you could.
Despite the body being designed and built by Pininfarina, its square shape doesn't look much like what they typically made for Ferrari. So many people today would never guess it was an Italian design.
I even got accused of trying to drive down the values of Allantés for some reason, which frankly is kind of hard to do. They're at the bottom of the curve. I picked up a running driving one for $2,000.
Today, well cared for low mileage examples can top out at $20,000. But when you consider what the car originally cost, and factor in more than 30 years of inflation, that's a depreciation of around 90%. Most of the Allantés that are still on the road are worth less than 10 grand to buy, and will likely need lots of fixes that will be expensive due to the scarcity of parts. It's a lot to spend for a car that when most anyone sees it today, it won't look much different than other convertibles of its era, which also hurts its value. Cadillac didn't give up on convertibles following the end of the Allanté, but their next decision was far less complicated, as they used the Corvette platform to build the XLR in 2004, and build it in the Corvette plant. I think it is extremely unlikely Cadillac will ever consider a production convertible again. Although if you've seen the Soleil concept, I suppose anything's possible. Thanks for watching.
The new Allanté!
If you like this video, click the like button and subscribe to my channel.
She stole my bounce.
Gee, how could that have happened?
If you once owned a car from the 70s to mid-2000s that you rarely see today and would like it featured in a future episode, leave a reply in the comments or contact me at the email shown here. See you next time.
Allanté. It was my bounce.